The perfect husband, the doting father, the American dream shattered by a monstrous secret. It was just past 1:40 p.m. on August 13, 2018, when Nichol Atkinson pulled into the driveway of a quiet home in Frederick, Colorado. The sun was blistering. The silence on the cul-de-sac was heavy. She stepped out of her car, her brow furrowed with worry. Her best friend, Shanann Watts, hadn't returned her calls or texts, not since the early hours of the morning. Worse, she'd missed a doctor's appointment. That was unlike her. Very unlike her. Nichol rang the doorbell, knocked, waited. Nothing. She called Chris Watts, Shanann's husband. He was calm, almost too calm. She probably went to a friend's place, he said. She's fine. But Nichol knew something was wrong. She felt it. Her stomach churned. And when Shanann's shoes, her favorite pair, were found just inside the door untouched, it confirmed her fear. Shanann never left that house. And neither did her daughters. Chris Watts had always been described as mild-mannered, quiet, loyal, a good guy. In the picturesque suburban town, where neighbors waved from manicured lawns, he was the last person anyone would suspect. But behind closed doors, love had curdled into resentment. Duty had warped into burden. And somewhere, deep inside the man who once vowed forever to his wife, something had snapped. Shanann, 34, had been a thriving woman, a fighter. She had lupus, but that never stopped her. She built a business from scratch. She raised her two daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3, with passion and fierce love. On social media, their life seemed perfect. Too perfect. Every post gushed about Chris, the best dad, the best partner. But smiles can be masks. And Shanann's perfect world? It was crumbling. They were $70,000 in debt. Chris had grown distant. She suspected another woman. And she was right. In a series of haunting text messages to her friends, Shanann confided her fears. Chris had stopped touching her, stopped talking to her. He was cold, empty. She felt him slipping away. When Shanann flew to North Carolina for a family trip that summer, she hoped the time apart would help. It didn't. Chris was already gone. He'd fallen for a coworker, Nichol Kessinger. Younger, free, no kids, no responsibilities. She was everything his other life lacked. With Nichol, he could start over. There was just one problem: his family. That August night, Shanann returned home from a business trip around 1:48 a.m. Security camera footage caught her walking up the driveway for the last time. She was 15 weeks pregnant. She was carrying their third child, a boy she'd already named Nico. By morning, she was gone. So were the girls. Chris claimed he had no idea what happened. He told the police that Shanann said she was taking the kids to a friend's house. He smiled. He joked. He even gave interviews to the news, pleading for his family's return. "I just want them back. I just want them safe," he said, staring into the camera with glassy eyes. But behind the scenes, investigators were watching, waiting, and quietly, they were collecting evidence. And something didn't add up. The house was too clean. There were no signs of a struggle. No signs Shanann had packed for the kids. Her purse? Still in the house. So were her keys. Then came the surveillance footage from the neighbor's home. It showed Shanann arriving, but never leaving. Chris? He was seen backing his truck into the driveway early that morning. He claimed he was loading tools for work, but it looked like something else, something heavier. At the police station, detectives noticed Chris was off. Not angry, not frantic, just hollow, emotionless. They brought in a polygraph examiner. Before the test, she warned him, "If you had anything to do with Shanann's disappearance, it's going to come out." He nodded, then failed the test miserably. It was only a matter of time. In the interrogation room, Chris finally cracked. Sort of. He said he saw Shanann strangling the girls. In a sudden rage, he claimed he strangled her. It was a lie. A weak attempt to shift blame. The kind of story that shatters under the weight of truth. Chris Watts didn't kill in the heat of passion. He planned it. He smothered his daughters with a blanket, one by one, while they screamed for their mother. Then he strangled Shanann. And as if that wasn't cruel enough, he loaded all 3 of their bodies into his work truck, his daughters still alive and gasping for air, and drove them 45 minutes to a remote oil site. There, he buried Shanann in a shallow grave and dropped his daughters, his babies, into oil tanks, feet first. When the truth came out, America wept. Not just for Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico, but for the illusion that evil always wears a villain's face. Chris Watts didn't. He wore a polo shirt, smiled for family photos, kissed his daughters goodnight, and then took their lives without a hint of mercy. The court sentenced him to 5 life terms, without the possibility of parole. But even after his confession, questions lingered. Why didn't anyone see the signs? How could a father do something so vile, so calculating? And what role, if any, did Nichol Kessinger play in the days leading up to the murders? Some say she was just another pawn. Others, not so sure. Because after the murders, something strange happened. Nichol deleted her phone data. She cleared her search history. She Googled, "Can police trace text messages?" and "How to delete phone records." She searched for wedding dresses. She looked up Shanann's name. She Googled Amber Fry, the mistress of another infamous killer, Scott Peterson. Coincidence? Or something darker? But perhaps the most chilling detail came from Chris himself, after he was locked away. In a private letter, he wrote, "I didn't just snap. I planned it. I thought about it every day for weeks. And when I finished, I felt nothing. Not guilt, not grief, just silence. But even in that silence, there are whispers, unanswered questions, secrets buried with Shanann. And not everything stayed buried. Because a year after his arrest, Chris Watts told a different story. A version no one saw coming. A version so twisted, it made even the detectives question what they thought they knew. They thought it was over. The trial, the verdict, the sentence. Chris Watts, locked away for the rest of his life. No trial, no appeals, no more lies. Or so they believed. But 1 year after the murders of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico, Chris requested a visit. Not from family, not from a lawyer, but from the FBI. And when agents arrived at Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, they found a man who looked smaller, thinner, as though the weight of his crimes had finally started to crush him. He said he wanted to clear the air. What he revealed next would rewrite everything. It was February 2019. A year after he murdered his family, Chris Watts confessed again. This time, with no rehearsed lies, no distractions, just raw, sickening truth. He didn't kill in a moment of rage. He planned it, every single detail. The night before the murders, Chris and Shanann had sex. She thought they were reconnecting. She even texted a friend, saying she believed things were getting better, that maybe the worst was behind them. But Chris already knew what he was going to do. He had told Nichol Kessinger, the woman he was having an affair with, that his marriage was over, that his wife was holding him back, that he'd have a fresh start soon. That night, as Shanann slept, Chris sat in silence and watched her. I was standing over her, he said, and I knew if I took one more step, there was no going back. He took the step. Around 4 a.m., Shanann woke up. They argued. She accused him of cheating. She cried, begged him not to leave her. She told him he would never see his children again. That's when he straddled her, pressed his hands around her throat. She didn't fight, he said. She just looked at me. And then she stopped breathing. His daughters were watching. 4-year-old Bella walked into the room. "What's wrong with Mommy?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Chris lied, said she was sick, wrapped Shanann's body in a sheet. Then he dragged her down the stairs while his daughters cried. He put Shanann's body in the back of his truck. Then came Celeste, barefoot, holding a stuffed animal. Then Bella, silent, watching. He strapped them into the back seat. His wife's body lay at their feet. They drove like that for 45 minutes. Chris said nothing. Neither did the girls. They didn't know, he said. Or maybe they did. Bella just kept saying, "Are you going to do the same thing to me that you did to Mommy?" He didn't answer, because he already knew the answer. At the oil site, he laid Shanann's body in a shallow grave, then turned to Celeste. "I took her blanket," he said. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. Then Bella, the last to die. She fought back. She bit her tongue, her lip. She knew. She said, "Daddy, no." And then there was silence. He dropped their bodies into separate oil tanks. Their small frames were barely able to fit. When the tanks were opened days later, investigators were crushed by the details. Oil in their lungs, in their stomachs. They were still alive when they went in. Chris had buried them alive. So why did he confess again? Some say it was guilt. Others say it was ego. He claimed to find God in prison, wrote letters to strangers, joined Bible study, told a pen pal that demons had entered his body that morning. But his prison letters told a different story, one filled with contradictions and chilling calm. "I felt like someone else was in control," he wrote, "like I was watching myself do it. I knew it was wrong. I couldn't stop. Afterwards, I felt nothing." Nichol Kessinger disappeared from public view after the murders. She changed her name, moved out of state. But before she vanished, she left behind a digital footprint, one that sparked even more questions. She had Googled how to delete texts. Can cops see deleted phone data? How long do phone companies keep records? She also searched, did people hate Amber Fry? How to prepare for a media storm. And just days after the murders, she looked up wedding dresses and real estate. She claimed she didn't know Chris was still married, but she had Googled Shanann weeks earlier. So, was Nichol just a lover caught in a deadly lie? Or something more? In prison, Chris seemed to change again. He started receiving letters, from women around the world. Some called him handsome. Others called him misunderstood. A few even proposed marriage. He wrote back. He told them he found peace, that he missed his girls, that he dreamed about them. He drew pictures of angels. But in one letter, he wrote something disturbing. Sometimes I wish I could do it all over again. Not change what happened, just to feel that power again. Was it a slip? A sick fantasy? Or the truth of a man with no soul? There was one final mystery that investigators couldn't shake. On the morning of the murders, Chris received a strange call. Less than 2 minutes. Never explained. It wasn't from Nichol. It wasn't from family. It came from a burner phone. Untraceable. And what was said remains unknown. But according to prison sources, Chris has hinted that he wasn't alone that night. He once muttered in his sleep, "Why didn't she stop me? She said she would stop me." Was he talking about Nichol or someone else? As investigators reopened files and reviewed call logs, another clue emerged. A GPS ping from Chris's truck in a place he never mentioned. It wasn't on the way to the oil field. It was off route, unexplained. Could someone have been following? Could someone have been there? The Chris Watts case seemed closed. But beneath the surface, cracks have begun to form. Strange sightings, unreleased footage, letters that hint at more victims, more secrets, and one detective, who refuses to let the case rest, claims that Chris didn't act alone. He says there's a name buried in the evidence, a name that was missed. And just last month, that name surfaced in connection to another missing persons case. One with eerie similarities. Who was the mystery caller on the morning of the murders? Why did Nichol erase her phone so thoroughly? And what is Chris Watts still hiding, even from himself? August 13th, 2018. 3 lives ended. One was erased before it even began. And the man who did it, Chris Watts, confessed to every horrifying detail. But what if he didn't act alone? What if this wasn't the story of a man who simply snapped, but of a far more twisted plan? The public believed it was over. But in the shadows of the Colorado plains, where oil rigs hum and memories rot beneath soil and steel, a new truth has begun to whisper. The mystery call. The burner phone. A call made to Chris Watts just hours before the murders. Exactly 1:24 a.m. Duration, 111 seconds. No name. No number linked. No record of who spoke. Just silence and the clock ticking toward death. Chris never mentioned the call. Not during questioning. Not in court. Not even in his full confession. But data doesn't lie. The call existed. And when tech analysts dug deeper, they found something else. Chris had texted someone minutes later. The message is gone. Deleted. But metadata reveals a recipient. A string of numbers tied to an encrypted app. One commonly used for secret chats. Who was he talking to? Detectives reopened portions of the case in 2020, quietly, without public notice. Their focus? Nichol Kessinger. She had changed her name, moved across state lines, lived under the radar. But a subpoena of her deleted digital history turned up disturbing new information. In the weeks before the murders, Nichol didn't just search for wedding dresses and Amber Fry. She also Googled, "Can you delete GPS history from a truck?" Can deleted messages be recovered by police? What happens to mistresses during a murder investigation? Most chilling of all, she searched Watt's oil site GPS coordinates for days before the murders. How did she know where that oil site was? She didn't work there. Chris never claimed he told her. And yet, she had pulled the exact location up on Google Earth. Chris, when asked again about Nichol's involvement, fell silent. Then whispered, "She didn't make me do it. I wanted it." But she knew. He wouldn't say more. But prison phone logs recorded a different story. On one call with his mother, Chris said, "She told me if I really wanted to be with her, I had to end it. That there was no room for my past in her future." One witness, a former Anadarko Petroleum employee, came forward in 2021. He claimed he'd seen a red Toyota SUV parked near the oil site around the same time Chris was there on the day of the murders. Nichol drove a red Toyota SUV. Police never confirmed the sighting, but dashcam footage from a local road near the site captured a blurred image of what could match that description on the opposite side of the property from where Chris entered. Coincidence? Or was Nichol there watching? Another strange detail emerged. When Shanann's friend Nicole Atkinson called the police to do a welfare check, bodycam footage showed Chris pacing, nervous, sweating. He opened the garage, then quickly closed it again. But before he did, there were two sets of adult shoes visible near the door. One pair belonged to Chris, the other, not Shanann's. Investigators missed it at the time, but still frames from the footage reveal the outline of a woman's shoe, size 7.5, red rubber soles. Nichol wore that size, and in her own photos from that summer, she was seen wearing a pair of red sole Skechers. If Nichol was there, why didn't Chris say anything? Why protect her? Unless she wasn't just a bystander. Unless she helped. And if she helped, what else did they do together? One of the most haunting theories came from a criminal profiler who studied Chris Watts for over 300 hours. He believed Chris didn't have the psychological profile of a man who could kill his own children unless someone else enabled it. Watson displayed signs of sociopathy before the affair. His change was triggered, accelerated. Someone fed his delusions, gave him permission, maybe even direction. In prison, Chris allegedly told a fellow inmate, "She told me it'd be easy, clean, that no one would ever believe I did it." So why hasn't Nichol Kessinger been arrested? Because evidence, real legal evidence, is thin. There's no footage of her at the scene, no fingerprints, only suspicion, metadata, hints, and a series of actions that suggest guilt but don't prove it. But there's one final breadcrumb, one so chilling, investigators have kept it classified until now. In the final recorded phone call between Chris and Nichol, just days before the murders, she whispered a phrase. The call was short, under 90 seconds, but it ends with her saying, "We start clean. You know what you need to do." Was it a threat, a suggestion, or a plan? In 2024, an anonymous tip was submitted to the FBI. A letter, postmarked from Wyoming, claimed that Nichol had confessed in a drunken state to a former roommate, that she had helped Chris cover it up, that she had been at the oil site, that she had watched him do it. The tipster included a name, a man who had since changed his identity and gone off-grid. But the FBI found him, and now he's talking. Who was the man who claims to have heard the truth firsthand? Why was Nichol searching the oil site days before the murders? And if she was there, why didn't Chris name her in his confession? Was it love, fear, or blackmail? They called him a monster, a father who turned on his own family, a husband who smiled in TV interviews while his wife and daughters lay buried beneath oil and dirt. But what if he wasn't the only monster? What if someone stood by and watched? What if someone else whispered in the dark, "You know what you need to do," and vanished before the blood dried? In this part, the shadows speak, and a new voice rises from obscurity, one that claims to have heard the confession no one else dared to believe: the letter. In March 2024, an unmarked envelope arrived at an FBI satellite office in Denver. No return address. Postmarked Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Inside was a single handwritten note. "She told me everything. I thought she was drunk. Until I saw her name on the news. Until I recognized the face. She watched him do it, and she didn't stop him." No signature. But there was a name: Aaron Reed, a man who had lived with Nichol Kessinger for 3 months during her college internship in Aurora, Colorado. Back then, he was her roommate. For a few nights, her lover. And, according to him, the person she confided in long before the murders ever happened. Agents found Aaron Reed living off-grid in a mountain cabin outside of Cody, Wyoming. No electricity, no phone. A man who had left society behind. When they arrived, he didn't resist. He didn't run. He simply said, "You're here for her, aren't you?" The interview. In a private room, Aaron told them everything. "I recognized her on the news. She had changed hair, name, voice. But I knew. You don't forget eyes like that." He claimed Nichol contacted him just 3 weeks after the murders. Late at night, from a blocked number. She said she needed to talk, that she had done something terrible. She kept saying, "I didn't stop him. I thought he was bluffing." Then she told him, "I was there. I watched him do it. I froze." Aaron said her voice was flat, empty. She didn't sound panicked, more like proud, like she had finally broken free of something. He never recorded the call. No messages followed. But a week later, he received a package. Inside, a pair of Red Soul Skechers, with a note: "Burn these. If anyone asks, you never knew me." He didn't burn them. He buried them in the backyard behind his cabin. When agents dug, they found the shoes. DNA testing confirmed the results. The shoes belonged to Nichol Kessinger. The audio file. Back in 2018, during the initial search of the Watts home, a body cam worn by Officer Coonrod captured something strange. It was never made public. Audio only. Near the garage door, right before Chris quickly shut it. A faint voice. A whisper. Slowed down and enhanced by FBI tech, it revealed a single sentence. "Is it done?" It wasn't Shanann. It wasn't Chris. The voice was female. A vocal forensics analyst compared it to Nichol's known voice patterns. 84% match. Too low to confirm. Too high to ignore. The case files remained sealed. But pressure was mounting. The Watts family, Shanann's parents, petitioned for a reinvestigation. So did the Frederick Police Department's own cold case unit. The state refused. Why? Because Chris had confessed. He was already serving multiple life sentences. Reopening the case would mean challenging a closed conviction and possibly implicating someone who had never officially been named a suspect. But Aaron Reed's statement changed everything, because he didn't just say Nichol knew. He said she had been there before. In July 2018, just a month before the murders, Aaron claimed Nichol had flown to North Carolina. Secretly, that's where Shanann and the girls were visiting family, where Chris had flown in to see them after the strain in their marriage. But Nichol was there, too. Not publicly, not on flight records. She drove from Colorado to North Carolina, 1,600 miles. Aaron claimed she rented a car under a fake name and stayed just 12 miles from the Watts family's vacation home. She told me she wanted to see what she was up against, that she was tired of being the other woman. There's no footage, no receipts, no surveillance, but there is this, a photo from Shanann's Facebook taken on July 31st. In the background, through the reflection of a window, a red SUV is parked near the curb, zoomed, blurry. But investigators now believe it matches the shape of Nichol's 2018 Toyota 4Runner. So what does this mean? Was Nichol stalking the family? Was she planning something long before the murders? Or was she caught in something darker? Aaron says the final call she ever made to him ended with this: "I didn't just lose him. I lost myself. There's no coming back." And then she was gone. But where is Nichol Kessinger now? The FBI has confirmed she changed her name again in 2022. She moved twice. One location was reportedly near the Mexico border, another near Seattle. She remains in hiding, but sources suggest she might not be alone. Nichol has allegedly been seen with a man, tall, bearded, tattooed. Some say he resembles Chris. Others say he calls himself by another name entirely. So who is protecting Nichol Kessinger? Why was she at the oil site before the murders? And what did Chris mean when he told his inmate cellmate? She said she'd handle the rest if I just took care of them. The house on Saratoga Trail sat quiet, lights off, blinds closed, a hollow shell of the family it once held. After the murders, it became a macabre monument, visited by strangers, guarded by silence. But in October 2024, 6 years later, a new search was ordered. This time not for bodies, but for truth. A tip buried in the backlogs of the FBI's anonymous files led them to the attic. Hidden behind insulation, sealed in a watertight plastic bag, they found it. A journal, handwritten, torn at the edges. The name on the first page? Nichol K. The journal. It wasn't a diary. It was a countdown. Each page a glimpse into obsession. A woman spiraling deeper into delusion. A roadmap laced with envy, rage, and cryptic codes. The first entry was dated May 21st, 2018, 2 days after Nichol and Chris allegedly reconnected. He said she doesn't listen anymore, that she's distant. I told him I would be everything she isn't. A few pages later, he told me he loved me, that he wanted out. I told him I believed in him, that he was stronger than he thought. The entries became darker in June. She's pregnant. He didn't tell me at first. I saw it on Facebook. He said it changes nothing, but I see the fear in his eyes now. I have to be patient. but she always gets in the way. And then, I had the dream again. Her face in the water. The girls laughing, then silence. He said it was just a dream. But what if dreams are a message? A way forward. There was more. Sketches. Doodles of hearts that bled into X's. A crude map matching the oil site location. One chilling entry stood out. Dated August 10th, 2018. 3 days before the murders. He said he couldn't do it. That he'd lose everything. I reminded him there's freedom in destruction. Some things must die to be reborn. And then, beneath the ink, scrawled and rushed, almost manic handwriting. No loose ends. If he hesitates, I finish it. The list. Tucked inside the back of the journal was a folded sheet of paper. A checklist. Delete messages. GPS off. Burner phone. Watch the garage. Smile for cameras. Play innocent. It wasn't signed, but every item aligned with Chris's behavior during the days after the murders. The last entry. It's dated August 12th, 2018. The night before Shanann returned home. He says he loves me, that he's ready. I told him I'll be nearby. I'll be watching. If he wants a new life, this is the price. No more turning back. That was it. No signature. No confession. Just a final, haunting phrase. Tomorrow the past dies. The red sweater. Alongside the journal, investigators recovered a red garment, balled up and stained with what appeared to be oil and dirt. DNA testing later confirmed two things. The sweater belonged to Nichol Kessinger. The soil embedded in the fibers matched the oil site's ground composition. She had been there. The journal proved she knew. The soil proved she went. But still no footage. No confession. No warrant. Yet, Chris speaks. Again. In November 2024, from his Wisconsin prison cell, Chris Watts gave a handwritten statement to the FBI. I didn't tell the full truth. I didn't want her dragged down. But she was there. I saw her car. She said she was watching. She said, I'm proud of you. I didn't do it because she told me to. I did it because I wanted to make her happy. And when I came back that morning, she was gone. He ended with, she said she'd handle the rest. I didn't know what that meant. But she never called again. The missing video. Security camera footage from a neighbor's house, once dismissed due to obstruction, has since been digitally restored. At 5:17 a.m. on August 13th, 2018, a second vehicle appears in the distance. It stops. No one exits. Then it reverses and disappears. The timestamp places it 7 minutes after Chris left with Shanann's body. And the car? Red. SUV. Unmarked plates. Nichol's exact make and model. So the question now is no longer did she know. It's how much did she do? And most chilling of all, was she planning something more? The hidden page. Inside the binding of the journal, investigators found a torn edge, glued shut. They steamed it open. Inside was a folded note. I thought love was enough. But he was weak. I had to become what he couldn't. He chose silence. I chose the end. If they ever find this, I'll already be gone. Some lies you bury. Others you leave behind. So where is Nichol Kessinger? Who is helping her disappear? And what new life did she build from the ashes of a slaughtered family? There's something chilling about premeditation. Not the heat-of-the-moment violence, but the kind that unfolds like a chess match, planned in silence and executed with a smile. When investigators uncovered Nichol Kessinger's journal from the attic of the Watts family home, they believed they had the missing piece. But what if that wasn't the final chapter? What if it was only the beginning? The safety deposit box. February 2025. A bank in Eugene, Oregon. An anonymous tip. A storage box opened under a false name, April Kessler. When investigators forced it open, they expected documents. What they found was far worse. A second leather-bound journal. A burner phone, battery removed. A folded photo of Shanann Watts with her eyes scratched out. And a cryptic note that read, "The next time, no hesitation." The second journal. Unlike the first, this one was typed. Pages printed out and stapled into the cover. Neat. Cold. Not rambling thoughts, but steps. It read like a guidebook. The first page simply said, Blueprint 02, clean break. What followed were 10 entries, each labeled as a phase in a timeline. Phase 1. Identify the weakness. Study his routines. Watch what he hides. Exploit his guilt. Make him feel seen. Phase 2. Cut the tethers. Encourage disconnection from family. They don't understand you. Suggest travel. Distance breeds control. Phase 3. Pressure point. Children are leverage. If he loves you more than them, you win. If not, remind him of your silence. It was psychological warfare, page after page. But then came Phase 6, trial run. And what it described matched the timeline of the Watts family murders. Test his limits. Suggest what-ifs. Gauge reaction. Create fantasy. Then blur into reality. If fear stops him, remind him what he'll lose. Use love as the weapon. The name that changed everything. Tucked into the back of the journal. On a single post-it. Test subject. JR, Spring 2020, Seattle. JR. Not Chris. Someone else. Using court subpoena power, investigators traced transactions tied to April Kessler to a small tech company in Seattle. And on the employee list, James Reddick, 34, divorced, no children. But what stood out was this. In April 2020, James filed a police report. He claimed his girlfriend, real name unknown, was threatening self-harm if he ever left her. He said she appeared under a new identity only months earlier. She had no social media, no family, no background. She knew things about me I never shared. She said we were destined. She said she'd burned for someone before and wasn't afraid to burn again. Her name on the lease? Nikki Cross. The mysterious fire. 2 weeks after James filed the report, his apartment caught fire. The cause? Ruled as arson. James survived. But Nikki Cross was never found again. Her fingerprints never appeared. The name disappeared from every database. Gone without a trace. Just like Nichol Kessinger. The symbol. Etched into the back of the second journal was a symbol, a triangle with 3 dots above it. Investigators ran it through databases. No direct match, but cult analysts flagged it as similar to markings used by a fringe group known as the New Ember. A belief system rooted in cleansing rebirth through destruction. Their motto? To burn is to be born again. The group had been linked to 3 suspicious deaths between 2017 and 2021. Each victim? A man. Each case? Fire-related. No arrests. No suspects. Until now. The connection. An anonymous tip from a former Ember associate, known only as M, claimed that a woman using the name Nikki had once visited their gatherings. She was intense, didn't talk much, asked about rebirth, said she'd watched a man kill and felt powerless. Then she laughed, said next time she'd lead. But what is her endgame? Is Nichol Kessinger on the run? Or is she playing a much deeper game? The journals show she studied behavior, manipulated men, used love to plant seeds of destruction. So was Chris what's a one-time tragedy, or the first in a string of experiments? The new clue. March 2025. A female suspect using the name Clara E. purchases a property in Montana under an LLC. Remote. Off-grid. With a greenhouse and a soundproof basement. Investigators are on alert because the name on the construction contract, see Ember Designs. Is Nichol Kessinger building something again? Is she creating a safe house for herself or a stage for her next victim? And if she's not working alone, who's helping her pull the strings? It started with a man who strangled his pregnant wife and smothered his 2 young daughters. But what if he wasn't acting alone? What if Chris Watts was just the first piece of a much larger, far more disturbing puzzle? We uncovered a second journal, one that read like a blueprint for psychological manipulation and murder. But buried in the margins of that document was a symbol, a triangle, 3 dots above it, and one word whispered behind closed doors. Ember. The cult in the shadows. The new Ember. That's what they call themselves. Not a religion, not quite a cult, but something in between. A loose underground collective that believes in spiritual rebirth through emotional combustion. Translated, pain purifies. Destruction transforms. Death is merely a reset. They operate in coded forums, encrypted chat rooms, off-grid compounds tucked away in remote corners of the U.S. No leader, no doctrine, just one rule: no rebirth without the burn. The first Ember file. The FBI first flagged the group in 2017 after a series of unexplained deaths in the Pacific Northwest. 3 men, all romantically involved with women who seemed to appear out of nowhere, then vanish. Each death shared eerie similarities. House fire, suicide note, typed, not handwritten. No sign of forced entry. No clear motive. Victims were labeled unstable. But the similarities went unnoticed. Until victim number 4. Case 004, Eric Hayward. March 2018. Portland, Oregon. Eric Hayward, 39, software engineer. Found dead in his apartment, suffocated. The scene staged to look like autoerotic asphyxiation. But here's the twist. His sister discovered an SD card hidden inside a bathroom tile. On it, hours of footage, home surveillance, and in 3 different clips, a woman entering and exiting his apartment, always dressed in black, face partially obscured. But once, just once, her reflection caught in a mirror. The face? It bore a chilling resemblance to Nichol Kessinger. Victim patterns. FBI analysts reviewed all 7 suspected Ember cases. The men were emotionally vulnerable, recent divorces or family turmoil, drawn in by charismatic women with no traceable background. Each woman used a variation of the names, Nikki, Clara, Elle, or April. In 5 of the 7 cases, the victims had voiced fear or confusion to friends, using phrases like, "She knows things she shouldn't. She talks about starting over after someone dies. I feel like I'm being rehearsed for something." The training tapes. One file found on an Ember-affiliated server contained a distorted video titled, "Trial Through Fire, Volume 3. In it, a woman, voice altered, addresses the camera. "They can't break free unless you make them bleed. Not always physically, but emotionally. You must become their mirror. Reflect their worst selves. Then watch them crack. You aren't killing them. You're liberating them. You're building gods from ashes." The video ends with a phrase flashing in red font. "Chris was the beginning. You will be the end." Back to Nichol. Investigators believe Nichol Kessinger didn't stumble into Chris What's Life by accident. According to metadata from her old work devices, she searched his name as early as January 2018. She accessed Facebook pages of Shanann and mutual friends weeks before she claims they met. And she downloaded a book in April 2018 titled, "Erased, Vanishing Without a Trace." Was she planning an exit or a performance? And more chilling, was she being coached? The Montana Compound, March 2025. An FBI raid on a property in rural Montana purchased by a woman using the name Clara Ember. What they found: a fully soundproof basement with 2 cots, a locked cabinet filled with fake IDs, 47 burner phones, and printed dossiers of men across 5 states. All single, all affluent, all emotionally vulnerable. Each file labeled with a phase: initiation, burn, rebirth, exit. And in one drawer, taped to the underside, a photograph of Chris Watts. On the back, success. Recruit potential confirmed. 2018. The voicemail. Days after the raid, a voicemail was left on an FBI tip line. The woman never gave her name, but her voice sent chills. "You found the ashes, but not the flame." This story didn't begin with Chris, and it won't end with me. We are the burn that births gods, and we're everywhere. The call originated from a gas station payphone in Silt, Colorado, just 70 miles from where the Watts family was buried. Coincidence? Or message? So, what is the Ember Circle really? A cult of personality? A secret society? A network of trauma seekers turned killers? Whatever it is, it's organized, it's hidden, and it's growing. Investigators now believe at least 4 women tied to the new Ember remain active. And one of them, according to new intel, may be living under a new name in Savannah, Georgia. Her alias? Nichol Kessinger. And she just got a job as a live-in nanny for a recently widowed father of 2. When Chris Watts strangled his wife Shanann and smothered their 2 daughters, the world saw a singular, twisted act of evil. But as this series has shown, it may have only been the first act in a darker, ongoing production, a web of psychological manipulation, emotional warfare, and ritualized death orchestrated by a group hiding in plain sight. The Ember Circle. In this installment, we go deeper into the rituals, the code, and the chilling new plan known as the Lazarus Protocol. It's not just about murder anymore. It's about transformation. And for the women behind Ember, it's not enough to destroy. They want to resurrect. The Nanny in Savannah. In April 2025, a newly widowed man in Savannah, Georgia, David Collier, hired a live-in nanny to care for his 2 young children. She came with glowing references, a calm presence, soft-spoken, polished. She told him her name was Nichol Kessinger, but her photo matched facial recognition software. Nichol Kessinger. New name, new haircut, new life, but the same face that once stood beside a family killer. The Collins House incident. 3 weeks into her employment, David's oldest child, 8-year-old Harper, told school counselor that Miss Nichol whispers weird things when Daddy's asleep. When asked what those things were, Harper replied, "She says Mommy didn't die. She says she's coming back in someone else's body." Child's imagination or a message from Ember? Police were called. But by the time they arrived at the house, Nichol Kessinger was gone. No note, no bags, just a single book left open on the kitchen counter. Title: The Phoenix Philosophy. Rebirth Through Ruin. A bookmark page read, "To resurrect a spirit, you must first kill its memory. Replace the roots, and the tree becomes yours." The initiation tape, recovered during the Montana compound raid, a 7-minute video now referred to as the Ember trial, reveals a masked woman speaking to camera. The Lazarus Protocol is our next chapter. No longer will we follow men into their weakness. We become the architects now. We choose who burns. We choose who returns. The camera pans to a whiteboard behind her. Scrawled in red marker, Lazarus Protocol. Select the broken. Earn the trust. Introduce the flame. Remove the anchor. Rewrite the identity. Rebirth begins. One word is circled. Replication. Replication. The copycat killings. Investigators are now reviewing 3 new murder cases in 2024 to 2025 that bear striking resemblance to the Watts murders. Case 1. A man in Utah strangles his wife, then buries her on private property. Claims she left him. Smiles through media interviews. Eventually confesses. Says, "I just wanted to be free." Case 2. A single father in Texas poisons his daughters. Leaves their bodies at his workplace. Claims he snapped. His girlfriend? Untraceable. Case 3. A Colorado man is arrested attempting to dump a body near an oil site eerily similar to the one where Shanann Watts was found. All 3 had recent partners who disappeared. All 3 had downloaded encrypted messaging apps traced back to Ember servers. All 3 were guided, step by step. The Lazarus file. One decrypted folder titled LPV1 Lazarus Protocol includes PDFs labeled behavioral triggers, psychological breakdowns of male victims, sample phrases to use in manipulation, scripts to recite during final confrontations. One document reads, "When he begins to doubt, remind him of his limits. When he begins to cry, remind him of his rebirth. When he begins to resist, remind him you are always in control." At the end, failure is only a beginning. Death is only the middle. Rebirth is power. The circle isn't alone. New intelligence suggests Ember isn't working in isolation. An affiliated network codenamed Ashes, appears to be providing safe houses, false identities, and psychological training for new female recruits. Ash's motto? Revenge is not rage, it's revolution. They operate like a paramilitary cult, but without weapons. Their weapon is intimacy, manipulation, and belief. Chris' final letter. In late May 2025, Chris sent a sealed envelope to his mother from prison. Inside were 4 words on torn paper. She promised resurrection too. He never explained, but the timing, just as Ember's Lazarus protocol leaks, suggests Chris was not only used, he was a prototype. Is the Ember Circle still active? Yes. And worse, it may be spreading. The FBI has flagged 17 women nationwide who have used the name Nikki or Nichol in new IDs since 2019. Of those, 6 have ties to known Ember-affiliated bank transfers or encrypted message boards. But here's the most chilling detail. One of them is now a licensed therapist, specializing in grief counseling for widowed fathers. So what comes next? From the start, the world thought they understood what happened. A man, a failing marriage, a secret affair, a monstrous act. Chris confessed. He cried. He was sentenced. And with that, the book was closed. But as you now know, the story was never that simple. Because behind Chris, beneath the lies, the silence, the grave, was someone else. Someone pulling strings, watching, whispering, disappearing. Nichol Kessinger. Or was that ever really her name? June 2025. A 3rd journal was recovered, this time from a locker in a bus terminal in Bismarck, North Dakota. Inside, a burner phone, 3 passports, and a letter addressed simply to the last one. The contents were disturbing. Not a confession, not remorse, but instructions. The media made it a love story, but it was never love. It was design. Chris wasn't my weakness. He was my rehearsal. The next one, will finish what I started. When the fire ends, the world will see that gods don't fall. They rise. Signed, E. Assumed to mean Ember. Chris remains in prison, serving multiple life sentences. But he's no longer the story. He was the match. Ember was the flame. Authorities now believe that at least 9 deaths across 5 states are linked to the Ember Circle. All share common threads. Isolated men, emotionally broken, intimate manipulation, women who vanish like smoke, and always a spark left behind. A book, a journal, a whispered message. The question that still burns. Was Nichol Kessinger radicalized? Or the founder? Was she another pawn? Or the queen of the entire board? No one knows for sure, because Nichol Kessinger has not been seen under any verified name in over 3 years. Some say she fled to Mexico. Others say she died long ago, and Ember is now just her echo. A doctrine, a script, a ritual passed down to the next. One final audio file was decrypted from an encrypted Ember forum just weeks ago. A female voice, calm, measured. She says, "We were never killers. We were mirrors. You gave us the blueprint, and we gave you the reflection. They'll call us monsters, but it was your world that taught us how to burn. We are not done. We are just patient." The file was titled, Final Rebirth, August 13th, 25. Exactly 7 years since the murders of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste Watts. In the end, Chris Watts killed his family, but he may not have been the true author of that nightmare. In the shadows, Ember wrote the outline, and now others are writing their own chapters. This was never about one crime. It was about a legacy. And legacies don't die. They evolve. So what's the truth? Is Ember a myth? A delusion? Or a cold, calculating force changing the face of intimate crime? One carefully chosen victim at a time? Maybe it's already too late to stop them. But knowing the truth? That's the first defense. So to you, our Crime Vault audience, thank you for walking through this darkness with us. Thank you for asking the hard questions. And if this story ever feels too close to home, if someone new enters your life, knows too much, moves too fast, lingers too long, remember this: some monsters don't wear masks. They wear your trust. Crime Vault. Closing the file on Chris Watts, the family murderer who played innocent. But the next file? It's already open. And it's worse. Much worse. Stay subscribed. Stay safe. Stay watching.